locked in.
Would you rather a plate of Ghana jollof or Niger jollof? Just be honest.
I'm not even familiar with what was the other one? The other option that wasn't Nigerian jollof?
Ghanaian jollof. Hello and welcome to Amplify Voices, where we highlight Black voices around the world that are making an impact within their respective industries. My name is Debbie Alamru, and I'm your host. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by the brand building, sneaker collecting, Twitter fingers instead of trigger fingers. No, he cannot get you verified. And he's a 40 under 40 honoree, and I'm not talking about Jay-Z's club. He is the head of U.S. sports partnerships at Twitter, Mr. TJ Adeshola. Welcome to Amplified Voices. How are you?
Those were bars. Those were intro bars of life. Those, yeah, we need to run that back. I'm a cut that snippet and just play it anytime I need to pick
every
me up.
morning.
And you talking about my sneaker flex? You know, I see what's going on behind you. Something like.
Well, we're so happy to have you. Thank you for joining me today. So, TJ, jumping right into it, I'm not going to lie. It looks like you have the dream job. So tell me, when you were a kid, what did you aspire to be or do when you got older?
I'm blessed and I'm fortunate and I'm thankful. And I pinch myself every day because I recognize that the path that I've gone hasn't been traditional. And I also understand that it's a job that didn't exist when I was in school. So it truly feels ordained at times. But to answer your question more directly, growing up, I just knew I wanted to be in sports. I'm one of the few African kids who grew up as an only child. So so sports was a bit of a security blanket for me. It's how I built relationships. It's how I learned camaraderie. It's how I learned how to deal with adversity. And it taught me to want to progress and want to be better. So sports was my first love, and I knew that I wanted to somehow work in that space.
Did you play any sports? And did your parents play any sports when they were young?
I played basketball my entire life. Mm-hmm. And then in college, I got an academic scholarship. My mother claims that she ran track, and she says that she was really, really good at track. She doesn't lie. So. Yeah. I'll take her word for it. But yeah, the streets say that she was an exceptional sprinter, and I believe it. So
that's awesome. So obviously, sports was a huge part of your childhood. So do you remember the first sporting event that you saw live?
Yeah, it was a college basketball game. I think it was in Providence. When I was younger, one of my good friends, his father was on the coaching staff of the Providence College Friars at the time. And we went to check out college hoops, which fueled my love, not only of sports, but basketball specifically.
Okay. Now, did you have any posters in your room as a kid? And who was your favorite? Who was your favorite athlete then?
Did I have any posters? I'm a Niger boy now. I'm a Niger boy. So growing up, it was Hakeem Olajuwon all day. I had multiple Hakeem Olajuwon posters because it reinforces the importance of representation. When you see something that feels representative of you and your upbringing, you're like, yo, I know that and I can do that. He had a long last name like I did. He was Yoruba like I am. So it was really, really, really important to see that representation. And he was dope. It's not like he was just an average player. He was a champion, the best of the best. So I certainly had a lot of Michael Jordan or Hakeem Olajuwon posters. I had Michael Jordan posters, the one with the rings and the one with the arms stretched, So I had a considerable amount of posters for sure.
I love that. Now, how far into the interview are we? Because I really was wondering how quick that Niger accent would come out. And
I was holding it back.
You did not disappoint.
I was holding it back. I was trying to be on my best behavior, So you brought it out of me. That's on you. That's on you. You brought it out of me.
Now, TJ, if you could only rock one pair of sneakers for the rest of your life, what would they be?
I'm inspired by what you got going on back there. I see some Maxes. Quite a few Air Maxes. I see some Sakai's, which I love. Yeah, I love Sakai's. I see some 11s. I see some 1s. I think for me, it would probably be the Jordan 1 because you can do just about anything. If I need a hoop, I can hoop in them. If I need to go
Ah,
to an event, I can rock them an event. They're clean. The silhouette is classic.
yep.
Yeah, I would go with the traditional Jordan 1 for
Jordan 1. I'm
sure.
not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at
Yeah.
all. Now, you joined Twitter in 2012, working in sales strategy, and you are currently the head of US sports partnerships at Twitter. Now, that's like you said earlier, that's not a role that existed when you were planning your career. So tell me about your career path and how you got to where you are now.
In college, I mentioned I was on an academic scholarship, but I knew I
Okay.
wasn't playing. And my mother, growing up, immigrant parents have a tendency to ask their children to get PhDs and
Hmm.
doctorates and doctorals
Yeah.
and all that. So I did promise my mother I'd get a master's degree, and I achieved that. While I was getting my master's degree, I was really obsessive about securing an internship at ESPN, which
Mm.
was my favorite channel as a sports junkie growing up. So I sent a cold email to someone at ESPN. I did not get a response, but I knew that ESPN was going to have an event at my school, the University of Georgia, on a Saturday before a football game. So I went to the set around 6 a.m. because I knew, I'm like, all right, if I get here before everybody, if I get here while people are setting up, I can sit back, watch, and identify who the decision maker or the decision makers are
Hmm.
and try to shoot my shot. So I went to the set, I fell back, I watched, and there was a gentleman who just looked like, when you see a boss, you know a boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, he's the one. He's the one. So I put up on him and I said, yo, I've just kind of been sitting watching the operation. I'm fascinated by it. I would love an opportunity to learn from you. Are you all accepting interns? And he was like, you've been sitting here watching the whole time? I'm like, yeah, but not in a creepy way. Like I was just kind of taking notes. I'm not a creep. So
Right.
he gave me his email address. The rest is history. I got an internship at ESPN. That internship turned to full-time employment. And that full-time employment got me in the digital space working on ESPN.com, which lended itself to a really smooth transition from digital on the ESPN side to digital social side with Twitter. The
Wow.
wild thing with Twitter is I shot my shot on LinkedIn. I saw a role open and then I clicked apply. Within 48 hours, somebody reached out to me. And here I am a few years later as the head of sports. It's been a pretty sensational journey, but I know that it's bigger than me. Like that,
Yeah.
this is so.
That's a beautiful story. And that just shows, when I started my morning listening to Nipsey Hussle dedication, and I love
Yes.
stories like that where it's like you just know you're supposed to be somewhere and you'll do whatever it takes and you go above and beyond. Athletes are dominating the sports reporting space on platforms like ESPN, Fox Sports, and Bleacher Report. So,
Mhm.
where does the journalist go now? Is it Twitter? And where do you see the future of the sports landscape and news going?
The beauty of journalists is journalists are scrappy and they
Mm,
understand that if there are people to consume my content there, I need to reach them on that platform, whether it's Twitter, whether it's
yeah.
Clubhouse, whether
Hmm.
it's Substack, right? They're gonna find the audiences, and it requires them to be nimble enough and
Yeah.
flexible and perceptive enough to understand where those opportunities exist. So as for Twitter and our role, responsibility for journalists, we're simply a bridge. Journalists
Hmm.
have been able to use our platform in really, really amazing and thoughtful ways, and
Yep.
ultimately as a way to drive affinity for their content, to drive users to an end destination for wherever their long form pieces may be. I think our role will
Mm.
continue to be that. We just acquired a company called The Review, which is intended to do something very similar, to create an opportunity for journalists to continue to have a canvas, but a larger
Hmm.
canvas to monetize their work. So we're really excited about that. With respect to the larger landscape, media has never been more fragmented. So it does require journalists to be, as I mentioned, as scrappy as ever
Hmm.
to identify what those platforms are and to get it popping on those platforms. It's been really fascinating to see. I mentioned Clubhouse, I mentioned Substack.
Yeah.
it doesn't take long, but when these properties break through, people understand, oh, there's an opportunity for me to cook there. Let me go get it. So I
Yeah.
get inspired by journalists on a day-to-day basis because the work doesn't stop. The medium may change and evolve,
Hmm.
but the work doesn't stop.
That's actually some really good points there. Now, COVID-19 has had a profound impact on the world of sports as we've seen it. So it seems that Twitter has turned into like the stadium for fans since they're not able to watch games live anymore. So what has surprised you the most as far as engagement and response to a live event?
We were faced with a really unique business challenge. In lieu of live sports, how do we continue to service the sports fan? And every property and platform under the sun, the NBAs, the ESPNs, the NFLs, reached out and we had brainstorms. We had exploratory dialogue around how to continue to engage sports fans, knowing that the bread and butter, live sports, was on the tape or was temporarily tabled.
Hmm.
And we reached a really special moment in April. I think it was April with The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary on
Yes.
ESPN. It felt like live communal viewing. It felt like even though we were all socially distanced or all
Yes.
sitting on the couch in the panoramic, we were collectively tweeting. We were watching as a family wherever we were. We have something here. Although there aren't live sports, although fans can't consume sports in person like they're accustomed to, the timeline has become the roar of the crowd. Like if you listen closely enough, you can hear the same roar that you hear in stadium and arena that you do within the Twitter timeline. So we leaned into that narrative. We began elevating our sports properties in ways that allowed them to tap into and connect with the roar of the crowd, the roar of the stadium, as you mentioned. But it kicked off, or tipped off, I should say, during the early pandemic with The Last Dance.
Yeah.
And the back half of it, it was The Last Dance, and then it was Insecure. So back to back, you're live
Yes.
tweeting. You went from the Jordan stuff to like Molly tripping. You know what I mean? So it was a really special
Absolutely.
time.
Now, TJ, a lot of athletes, general managers, and coaches have created burner accounts on Twitter to be able to
Uh-oh.
respond to critical tweets about themselves, but not as themselves. How do you feel about them using the platform in that way?
Everyone's experience with and on the platform is different.
Right.
So you use it to your benefit the way you choose to. Now, creating multiple accounts requires a lot of bandwidth. It requires a lot of maintenance. So it amazes me that people have the bandwidth to do that and execute upon that. But I think it's interesting, like across, and we talk about on Instagram, they call them Finstas, across all
Yeah.
socials. There are folks who have burner accounts, But the wild thing is, especially on Twitter, folks are the FBI. Folks figure out the clues,
Look.
such and such follow such and such, and he responded to this, and don't let you slip up and
Yeah.
accidentally tweet from your account.
Ooh.
Then it all
Oh,
blows up. So,
no.
yeah, which has happened
Hmm.
before. We've seen folks turn into investigative reporters and identify who owns burner accounts. So I say proceed with caution if that's how
Right.
you move. But it is a pretty interesting trend.
Like we kind of stated earlier, but Twitter is the only place where you can experience every moment of an event like the NFL draft or the Super Bowl as it's happening. And even news breaks on Twitter before it's broadcast on the air. So when a Woj bomb drops, we literally see ESPN reporting on the actual tweet itself. So how do
Mhm.
you, in your role, take advantage of that?
It's fascinating because I hear players routinely say, "Damn, I heard I got traded because of a Woj bomb," or "I found out on
Yeah.
Twitter that I got traded." If it's happening in real time and it's newsworthy, it's gonna happen on Twitter. That's why
Mm-hmm.
the CNNs and the Foxes and the MSNBCs will prioritize tweeting out breaking news in advance of even doing it on their own and operated, because they
Mm-hmm.
realize the speed with which the timeline moves, and the fact that people go to Twitter for that. It is the world's real-time interest graph. Like you find out, you discover what's happening in real time. That actually, for better or worse, is a benefit for brands too,
Mm-hmm.
for athletes, because if you're a brand and you drop a really dope commercial, people are like, yo, we love this. You find out in real time what the tenor, what the temperature is around your ad. We tell brands all the time, this is the place where you launch and connect. And you figure out really quickly if people are rocking with your product or rocking with your creative or rocking with your song or not. So it's an advantage to athletes, to sports properties, to brands, to figure out what works, what doesn't.
Yeah. So speaking of brands then, what's one do and one don't on how to engage consumers on Twitter?
I think authenticity is paramount. We saw a lot of this summer where there was a lot of performative marketing, and the timeline was going to people's heads because they're like, yo, you're not about this. This is not what you do. I know that. But whereas there were brands who, like Ben and Jerry's, who have consistently done the work and have consistently been supporters of the movement, and people are advocates of that. So I think the key is authenticity.
What has been your proudest moment at Twitter?
I've had a lot of really epic, just fantastic times at the company, which is why I've been here as long as I have. What occurred in November of 2019 was an executive trip to West Africa, specifically Nigeria and Ghana. So I was one of seven who took or accompanied our CEO, Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter. He's also the CEO of Square Cash. Jack Dorsey and our executive team, our CTO, our chief product officer, and we went to Nigeria. I took them to my favorite suya spots. I had them eating jollof and plantain. You know what I mean? We went to Ghana and I argued about jollof rice, Nigerian or Ghana jollof rice in Ghana. So they got to see like the culture. They got to fall in love with it. They got to sense the infectiousness. They got to see the pace, you know, and it was really, really special to me. I had family come that I hadn't seen in years. It got to meet our CEO. Even got to introduce Jack to Dangote. Like, interestingly enough, like they were just, we spoke at the University of Lagos to students just so they could see that achievement at any level is possible. You know, I'm over there speaking to them in broken English and in pidgin, and they're like, yo, he's like us. And that was the point. Like, let's go connect with the people. The objective of the trip was very simple. Nigeria, West Africa is a massive market for us with respect to engagement.
Okay.
You can't really service a market without understanding what the needs of that specific market are. So our objective was to go to listen and learn. All right, how are these markets using our platform, and how can we best support this market and in a really thoughtful way? And if you know anything about Nigerians, they will give you feedback. So there was a ton.
Will not hold back, not one bit.
There was and it was so refreshing to Jack because people were giving us real feedback, and a lot of it, a lot of the insights and the learnings that we got from that trip is being put in action now. So that by far was one of the crowning achievements of my time.
That's a very powerful one. That's amazing. TJ, you're working in really rarefied air. These are places that people dream of working, right? So what advice would you give to someone who's trying to do what you do?
TJ is one of one. Debbie is one of one. You are one of one. So it's really, really important to understand what your superpower is, what your superpowers are. And where I could be helpful is saying, social media looks interesting. He works in social media. I wonder how he got there, right? And getting a sense of how one works in that particular space, as opposed to trying to be or trying to replicate what somebody else does. At least I can't be nobody well other than TJ. And I always encourage the students and my mentees, like, you're one of one and you're super dope because of that. Yeah. So your superpower is very different than my superpower. Lean into that, be a student of the game, identify, know where you want to work, where you want to be, what your passions are. So I often encourage folks, like, if you're passionate about this, get a sense of what that is. I was passionate about sports, and I knew at an early age I wasn't going to play professional sports. But I realized really quickly that there was a business of sports. There's a business around sports. So I started to be a nerd about that and understand what the opportunities look like in the business of sports as opposed to on the field or on the court. And God has blessed me in really cool ways. So that's what I would encourage folks. And be you. Tap into your superpowers.
Yeah, that's dope. That's really good advice. Now, what 4 athletes of any sport are on your Mount Rushmore?
A queen, obviously. Well, I think it's obvious that she's the greatest athlete of all time. I would say Serena Williams.
Yes.
Her. I can't not put Uncle Hakeem Olajuwon on there, just for the vibes. I am a big fan of LeBron James. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody to fight me, so I got to put Michael Jordan up there too.
That's a solid.
He's a GOAT. JJ Okocha would be one of my favorite soccer players of all time.
Dope. Yeah. Okay. Now, something that I've been actively and intentionally doing for myself is speaking my affirmations out loud. And that's been really powerful for me. So I want to ask you to state, what is your affirmation for yourself for 2021?
Operating with intentionality. Oftentimes there are things that kind of happenstance to us, which is dope, which is cool. But being intentional about, all right, I am going to mentor this person today. I am going to crush this presentation today. I am going to ensure that everybody on my team is promoted. Like being really intentional about specific goals, specific objectives that I have each and every day, and challenging myself to move and to act with intentionality has been a big priority for me.
All right, now it's time for my favorite part of the show where I get to play a game with my guest. So, TJ, we're going to play a game of Would You Rather, and you have 5 seconds or less to give me your answer, okay? You ready?
Don't embarrass me. Be careful.
Okay. Would you rather be on a team owned by Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban?
Oh, Mark Cuban.
Okay. If you were a pro baller, would you rather play on a team with Steph Curry or Michael Jordan?
Steph Curry.
Really?
Steph Curry.
Would you rather watch Above the Rim or He Got Game?
Ooh, Above the Rim. That's a great question.
Above the Rim. Would you rather, now I know you said earlier Jordan 1s, but thinking of all Jordans, would you rather Jordans or Air Maxes?
Jordans.
Okay. Would you rather get tackled by Khalil Mack or dunked on by Zion Williamson?
I'm getting tackled for sure. I'm not trying to be on a poster for the world to see. Nah, we gonna take this tackle.
Okay. Fair enough. What platform did you prefer? MySpace or Vine?
Oh, shout out to the home team. Vine, for sure. R.I.P. Vine. Oh.
R.I.P. Would you rather go down a rabbit hole of hashtags or threads?
Lately, there have been some really interesting hashtags pop up. So I would say hashtags for sure.
Okay. Would you rather a home-cooked meal or takeout?
What kind of question? No, give me jollof rice, Joe. What are you talking about? Home cooked all day, 10 times. Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather brunch or dinner for a first date?
Objectively, I would take brunch. And here's why I would take brunch. Because if it's a dope brunch and it's a dope time, you can carry on. You can extend the day.
That's good.
If it's awful, give me the check, I'm out, and then you could go on another date that evening to make up for what didn't occur. You know what I mean? Early in the day, like
not to
you don't
make
have to
up for.
Yeah. If you had a bad date, you can have a better date in the evening to make you feel a bit better. If someone were to move that way, objectively.
If someone objectively, of course, everything's objective. Okay, now this is a very serious question. Okay, so I really need you to be completely 100% honest with me.
I'm locked in.
Would you rather a plate of Ghana jollof or Niger jollof? Just be honest.
I'm not even familiar with what was the other one? The other option that wasn't Nigerian jollof?
Ghanaian jollof.
I'm not familiar. What is?
Well, don't be rude. I know if you have Ghanaian friends, don't be rude.
No, those are my homies, but I'm not familiar with them making jollof rice. I'm only familiar with Naja jollof. I like wache. I like shito. They have some heat. They've got some really good dishes. As for J rice, as for jollof, that one kind of smoky jollof that you can only get at Naja weddings. That's what gingers my spirit. That's what gingers my heart. So Nigerian jollof. Shout out to my Ghanaians, yo. I love y'all.
Okay, last question. If you could listen to any artist from one label only, would you rather Death Row or Bad Boy?
Bad Boy. Perfect. I'm an East Coast dude. So yeah, Bad Boy all day.
I love that. My injera of the week is to always pursue your purpose passionately. If God places something on your heart and you're surrounded by people who don't believe in you or naysayers, you have to ignore them because they don't see the vision that you see. So just keep going, work hard, do what you need to do to get to where you want to get to, because you can do it. So on that note, can't stop, won't stop, but we got to stop because we got to go. TJ Adeshola, thank you so much for joining Amplified Voices. It was so fun getting to talk to you, and keep doing what you're doing. I'm trying to be on Twitter as much as I can because these hashtags and these threads keep me stuck all day, literally. Like I just am addicted. But thank you, TJ. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Amplified Voices. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get notifications when we drop a new episode, and be sure to comment and let us know who you want to see interviewed on Amplified Voices. See you next week, guys.